Boom! Betting Bananas, UFC Vegas 78, Rafael Dos Anjos versus Vicente Luque. We got a battle of the Brazilians here in the main event. I'm joined by the heart of the show, Mr. Ryan Quinn. How you doing today?
Fantastic. Good to see you guys.
Love to see you as well. And we have a guest filling in for Miss L. Dawson. We got Joe Aberdeen from MMA Bet Club. How you doing today?
Awesome. Thanks for having me back, man.
Appreciate you coming on. So if you're new to the show, what we're going to do, we're going to give you our best bets. We're going to give you our underdog play. And at the end, we'll give you a 3-fight parlay as well. So make sure you guys stick around for the entire thing. If you're new to us, make sure you guys like the video. Make sure you guys subscribe. Follow us on the podcast feed as well. We have Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and we're on all your podcast feeds. So make sure you follow us. But guys, we're here for UFC Vegas 78. Exciting main event between RDA, Vicente Luque. Both guys in coming back in a little bit of a different situation. Vicente coming off of that scary injury he had. RDA obviously debuting in 2008 along with Brock Lesnar. And there's actually two other guys that debuted in 2008. I'm going to give you guys the chance to guess right now. Who are the other two fighters debuted in 2008 that are still currently active?
In 08? Man.
2008.
Jim Miller?
That's one of them.
Yeah, they definitely have to be male fighters because females weren't in 2008.
He's got a beautiful elbow.
He's got good elbows. I don't know.
The immortal Matt Brown.
Yes. Okay.
Always forget he's still fighting.
Yeah,
He was
2008.
2007.
It's look, I think it's 2008 for the UFC.
He's
He might
actually back too. He retired.
Because he was on the maybe he was in on the Ultimate Fighter in 2007. Okay, that makes sense. Okay.
But 2008, I guess, a year of longevity for UFC fighters who made their debut. Also, Dan Hardy, another guy who made his debut during 2008. But let's get into this card overall. We've got a couple of fighters making their debut. We've got a couple of young fighters and a couple of notable names like Khalil Roundtree, Cub Swanson. Joe, you're new here. What are you most looking forward to during this weekend's card?
Man, I am excited for the main event. I don't want to give away any picks or anything, but love both of those guys, both legends. And there's a lot of really interesting fights. There are a couple of debuts that I'm excited to see. I've been watching some back and forth banter with some of my friends and people online, and I think a lot of these can go a lot of different ways. This is a really tough card to call for me, but a lot of really intriguing fights. So I'm excited for some of this action. I'm glad they ended up getting T-Rex back on, and always fun to watch him, and that Jose Johnson fight will be interesting to see too.
Yeah, definitely. This card is a little difficult to bet. There's a lot of large lines. There's a lot of big favorites in this. Want to shout out a couple of people in the comments. Roland Gen Buen Camino, watching from the Philippines. I appreciate you. Tiago Silva saying Charles Oliveira Campbell. Saying Charles is going to be the champion. Ryan, what are you looking forward to during this weekend's card?
Well, the main event, I love RDA, and I've always followed Vicente Luque since Ultimate Fighter, Black Zillion's first American top team. So, RDA is just durable. It's just like both in fighting, his career in the ring, like he's just fantastic to watch. Love watching him. But one fight on the prelims that's kind of catch my eye is Juliana Miller versus Luana Santos, because I really want to see if that run that Juliana had in the Ultimate Fighter is for real. She kind of flopped her last fight. And this girl, Luana Santos, she had a couple big wins, and I believe it was LFA. So kind of who wins here, they're going to be catapulted in a high direction. So I'm really looking forward to that fight as well.
Yeah, Miller's last fight was a little interesting because her opponent she almost had the submission. Her opponent got the glove grab. There was a little bit of a controversy with that fight. So she potentially could have got the win, ended up not getting the win. So like you said, career trajectory, when you're a young UFC fighter, you don't want to start off, you have a 2-fight losing streak on the skid of your career. But let's get into it. Let's get into our best bets of tonight's plays. There's, like I said, it's a little bit of a difficult card because there's some heavy favorites, but also when it comes to best bets, that gives you a couple of locks as well. Ryan, I'll let you give us your best bet. Start us out.
Yeah, I'm going to start right at the top. I have RDA over Vicente Luque. I just think that whatever peak Vicente was going to have, he had already. I think that RDA, he has a very steamrolling style for Vicente, who he's going to try and figure out some striking, but by the time he's able to get comfortable, RDA's in his face, he's on his heels, and Vicente is against the wall. You're going to see RDA beat him the same exact way that he beat Robbie Lawler, I think. Just coming forward, take him down, let him up, take him down, let him up. Power punches when he has it. I have RDA over Vicente Luque.
Yeah, and I definitely like that point. We know Vicente Luque has that nasty anaconda choke that he gets to, that he's able to go to sometimes. Or sorry, it's the Darce choke that he likes a little bit better. Sorry about that. But he's not necessarily the best at getting the take or holding that takedown defense, and especially with a guy that's so well rounded like RDA. He might have the striking advantage. Vicente Luque will. We don't know one is how the recovery coming back from that brain injury is, right? That's such a big part of what he is he had a dangerous brain injury. And for a lot of fighters, typically you'll have a couple months off after a knockout. He took some serious damage, had to take almost a year off. That's going to be another part coming into this one. Joe, give us your best bet for this weekend's card.
Yeah, I went with a little chalky one, but I think there's a way to make it a little bit more desirable. I'm on Josh Fremd here. He's a pretty big favorite, but I think he'll do it inside the distance. He's aggressive. He's a big, strong guy. Had a really close fight with Fluffy, who I have a tremendous amount of respect for. I think he'll be able to dominate him pretty much anywhere. Pickett's so athletic, but he's been finished in all of his last 5 fights. He's very low volume, not too aggressive. His wins are pretty lackluster, if you ask me. And, he's one of the few guys that has a UFC loss to Jordan Wright, which I don't rank too high. So I think that should be a pretty safe one. And like I said, inside the distance, I think he gets it done.
Yeah, and there's another guy on the undercard that I was looking at is the Marcus McKee versus JP Bay's fight as well. JP is coming off a couple losses in a row. He can actually be coming up a weight class, fighting a guy who is a heavy hitter. And we know for JP, just got not knocked out just recently, but his last 3 losses, 2 out of the 3 were coming by loss or of knockout. So I like Marcus McGee. I like it inside the distance. That's -200 roughly on some betting books. But let's get to our underdog play, because there's a lot of heavy underdogs on this card. So there could be some opportunity to steal some money here. Joe, I'll let you start us off. What are you looking at as far as maybe some underdog plays?
Yeah, I think mine, it's not a massive underdog. I kind of stayed away from some of those. I think a couple of those could go either way, but definitely still have some value. But I went with AJ Dobson. He's off to a tough start. I think he's better than his record at 0-2. Fought some tough guys. Malkoun's a great wrestler. He's a good wrestler too, but didn't really get to show much off there. The Petrosian fight, I was hoping to see a little bit more from him, but Petrosian's a dangerous guy. Looked great at his last time out. So those losses aren't so bad to me, and he went to decision on both of them. Nchukwu, I don't like his wins either. I'm not big on Jamie Pickett, as I just mentioned, and Mike Rodriguez was the other, and he didn't even finish him. He had a lot of power before he got to the UFC, but it just didn't translate. I will say I'm a little nervous because he looked pretty good against Azamat before that last-second flying knee KO, but he also got KO'd by Olberg. I just think that this could be an opportunity for Dobson to prove why he's there, and I just don't think that Nchukwu is quite as athletic as he needs to be successful. He's got tons of power. He's more like a tank, but these guys just don't seem to get taken out of there by him like they did in some of the regional scene stuff.
So for him, his 2 last fights, speaking of Nchukwu, last 2 fights losing by knockout. Do you think this is a fight that he could get finished before the distance as well?
It could. He's in general a pretty durable guy. Both of those guys are really good strikers. I don't know that I would put Dobson on that level, and I think getting a win is probably going to be pretty important, so he may not go completely crazy, maybe a little more conservative, lean on the wrestling, win some minutes versus, which is pretty doable against the guy as low volume as Nchukwu. So I wouldn't bank on that. I would stick to the money line. I mean, got the underdog, and it's still pretty close, so I'm a safe play guy. I don't want to gamble too much on something like that.
Yeah, and to your point, if he's able to get the takedowns, and his last fight was able to get 3, that helps him in that department as well. As far as the safety department, we talked about, on Betting Bananas, what are the best picks? Are the guys that are going to give you a lot of control time. May not be the sexiest picks, but the people that are able to get on top and give you a lot of control time and maybe give you some of those boring fights, that's where you'll find a lot of your safer picks. So maybe that's something he can do is not give us the most exciting of fights, but give you a safer fight that will give him a win, especially coming off of the Contender Series, not having a win after that. He's going to want to pick up one in the UFC now. Ryan, what are you thinking about as far as maybe an underdog play?
I'm going with Poliana Viana over Jasmine Lucindo. I'm playing the experience on that all the way. Like we talked about, it's pretty tough to underdog fight, but Poliana's been around for a while, had some rumored unique training sessions with Kobe Covington that might come into play here. So I'm going with the experience over the youth there.
Now, I'm going to pose this question for both of you guys. Given the main event and how both guys have essentially a certain crutch, right? RDA been in the game for such a long time. Obviously, you don't know what you're going to get at a fighter at this age, right? You know what he has as far as the skill set, but what is he going to give you at this level and this point of his career? And like I said, with Vicente Luque, the damage that he had in his last fight, is there going to be any residuals coming into this one? So I'll pose this question, and I know, Ryan, you actually put this as one of your best bets. Is this one of the fights maybe you want to stay away from betting-wise just because you don't know with all the variables what can happen there? Joe, I'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, I don't think there are variables, but I think you have that up and down the card. Honestly, looking at this, there are so many that, at least one, there are so many different win or loss conditions that are available with this. I don't think this one's too bad if you have an opinion on it. I would probably go money line in this one over a prop. You got kind of a clash of history where, Vicente has finished 13 of his 14 UFCs. He's in there to kill. You got the durability of RDA. He's, most of his, or about half of his fights in his long career have gone to the card. So I always wonder, if it ends up going to the decision, does that mean RDA? If, maybe you could play kind of that way, but he's also still a good finisher. So I don't think that's one to stay away from. I do tend to like guys that have more historical context versus taking some of these guys that are in debuts or, short notice or changing weight classes, things like that always make.
Guys, I'm sorry, I'll be back in 2 seconds. I have to get my headphones.
No, yes. But it makes sense. Like you said, when you have a longer track history, it's like having that market maturity, right? Let's say with Bitcoin, since there was no market maturity, the market was crashing up and down. You didn't know what to expect. But when you're playing the stock market, when you're playing a fighter that has a long history, you're able to kind of read into that history more, kind of see and know more of what you're going to get with that fighter. So I definitely agree with you there. I think that makes a lot of sense when you have a fighter that has what he has, and you like that. And I like Vicente Luque. Obviously, you guys have talked about RDA. I think Vicente Luque has, the power, and the power is a great neutralizer in any division. And when you have somebody like RDA, obviously legendary skill set is top tier, but if he's able to stay up on a feet for a couple of enough time to land some damaging shots, I think he could put RDA out. I think this is one of those situations where you've seen him, like I said, he doesn't have the best takedown defense, but his jiu-jitsu is actually pretty good. And maybe he's able to stay safe on the bottom if not anything else. But I think this is a potential, turnaround fight for Vicente Luque as well. If he's fully healed up from last year and that full year allowed him to recover like he should have, this is one of the guys that are really very, very dangerous in a super deep welterweight division. Ryan, I'll let you get to your breakdown on the thoughts on the main event.
I think I kind of gave it with what I was going at. I know that you said something about Vicente's Darce, but I think RDA's had his black belt in jiu-jitsu for like 15 years. So he had it before he got in the UFC. So he, that's nothing he hasn't seen before. And I just think overall that when it came to strength of schedule, RDA has been a lot more within the fight, even in the losses, which he hasn't had many of over the last 10 years or so. And I don't think that the ring rust is going to play a big deal for Vicente either. I just don't think that he matches up well against Rafael Dos Anjos.
Well, I was going to say, he's got a 6-inch reach advantage. He's I sat next to him almost at 285. He's a lot bigger in person than I expected him to be. I actually am leaning a little on the Luque side, but I don't feel confident in that one at all. The only reason I said I'll also still bet it is I do like having bets at the end so I don't lose my money early and spend the rest of the event complaining about how I missed it up.
Yeah.
No,
RDA is just so good at moving his head and punching into clinches, punching into takedowns, that it's going to negate a lot of the reach.
no, it definitely makes sense. And I want Randy Willard asking what weight is that? It's going to be at 170. But 15 minutes, guys. Let's get into our fight parlay. This is where we can get the most money out of it. Ryan, I'll let you start us off. What's your fight parlay coming into this weekend's card?
All right. Well, I'm so confident in RDA. He's in my parlay, my RDA parlay. So I don't got to go into that anymore. But then going down, I mentioned Juliana Miller and Luana Santos. I have that fight going the over. I feel like there's going to be a lot of feeling out there. You might even see a throwaway round by both fighters, and just I'm not leaning too hard on a finish, but that fight is definitely going the over. And then I have Khalil Roundtree over Chris Daukaus. I just feel athleticism is good. Athleticism is going to play a huge part in that game. Chris is coming down to 205. It's not exactly like he was beating the world at heavyweight. I feel like he kind of had to come down here, and even though Khalil's kind of a hit or miss type fighter, that athleticism is just tough to keep up with. So I could see some really damaging chopping kicks, as well as spinning round kicks. All that flashy stuff is coming out. So I got RDA, I got Khalil Roundtree, and Miller Santos in the over.
Yeah, I like those picks, like you said, especially typically with the female fights. You typically want to go with the over on that, just because they don't have as much knockout power, especially when you know what you're getting, as far as like what Joe said, when you have a track record of what these fighters are going to give you, that there's, like you said, a feeling out process, and just going on the over, especially on the time, typically will get you on that. Joe, let's get your 3-fight parlay.
Yeah, try not to be too repetitive too, but I still think Fremd, and maybe you're a little more comfortable with the money line for a little bit, since it's a parlay. You'll still get a little extra juice from the rest of it. My second leg is actually Budai versus Parisian on the over. Usually heavyweights, I wouldn't do that, but neither one of these guys is really an aggressive finisher. I kind of see these guys both taking a lot of punishment, standing in front of each other. Maybe it slows down, a lot of clinching. Neither one of them, Budai, I almost went money line on with this one. I do think he potentially will get the win here. He tends to be favored by the judges, even though I didn't think he won the Bresky fight. I thought that went to Bresky. He almost got disqualified in the fight before that. And even the Collier fight was really close, but I think Parisian's been in a lot of these too. He survives more than I would have expected from some of the punishment that he's taken, and I don't think either of these guys is the guy to end it quickly. So I went with the over on that one. I almost went with you, same thing, with the Miller Santos over Quinn, and then I actually did same thing. I went Roundtree. I think his power is enough to hang with heavyweights, and the heavyweights have been putting Daukaus out. I think coming down, a big advantage that Daukaus had at heavyweight was his speed, or that's what got him up to that kind of top level where he started getting knocked out. And I don't think he'll have the speed advantage. Agree. We have to make sure that Khalil has his head right. He's on a nice run. He's looked pretty good. The Jacoby fight was a little suspect. Some people didn't agree with that. It was kind of a volume versus power scenario. And I rank Jacoby very highly. I think Jacoby's definitely better than if it was Jacoby versus Daukaus, I would be on the Jacoby side for sure. I think that one is going to be a Roundtree win. Myself just sticking to money line on that one as well.
Yeah, I think all three of us, because I'm actually going to give us a little bonus one too. Typically, I don't really throw one in here, but I'll give us one as well. But I think we're all on the Khalil Roundtree boat here with this one, just because, like you said, even though that was a split decision, that's like a split decision that aged pretty well, because we saw what Justin Jacoby can do. And like with him, that oblique kick that he had to the Modeskaus was absolutely nasty. So we know, like you said, the Muay Thai of Khalil Roundtree, the speed and power that he has as well, is going to be above what you get from Daukaus. And like you said with Daukaus, his ability was to be able to be a little quicker than the heavyweights that he was going against. So now he's not going to necessarily have the speed advantage. Of course, he's going to have that heavyweight power coming down, but Khalil Roundtree is very sound defensively. He's one of the guys that I'm giving for my 3-fight parlay. I'm also going to include the Marcus McGee win inside the distance for -200 too. I do think he finished JP Bays. I don't think JP is durable. He has a good, solid skill set, but there's nothing about JP that really wows me. When he's fighting, it seems like his skill set doesn't translate in the octagon. Maybe that it is, if maybe that's a mental thing, but he's not translating all those skills that he had coming into the UFC, or that he was as a prospect had coming into the UFC that we expected. And then I like McKinney inside the distance as well for -200 too. I think this is a comeback fight for him. He's had a couple ups and downs, almost finishing his, I'm blanking on the name right now, but coming
Dober?
back. I'm sorry?
Drew Dober?
Yes, almost finished Drew Dober. Dober came back, knocked him out. Then he got caught with a flying knee. I think this is a comeback win for McKinney. I think he's able to get it back. His opponent's on a 2-fight losing skid as well, one of those being a knockout. So I have McKinney finished inside the distance, and as part of that one. So I'll let you guys rank my 3-fight parlay, because you guys are the betting experts. I just kind of do some scouting and try to make some decisions. Ryan, what do you think about that 3-fight parlay?
No, it sounds good, man. A lot of safe stuff there. We went over a lot. I just what was there was the one pick that you said something about. Now it's drawing a blank. No, I thought it was all safe stuff.
Joe?
Yeah. Well, there are two. I would love to talk about these, because there were a couple that I was almost on with both of those. And the McGee fight, we've only seen the one. I don't rank Newsom so great. And Bays was brought in to be the stud, but his chin hasn't held up. So I think it comes down to that. He's been knocked down a ton. Surprised he survived the Montel Jackson fight. Coming up, maybe that helps the chin. I think there could be value there. It's rare that a guy gets 3 straight losses to open his career and still gets a 4th fight. So they must think he can do something. And then on the McKinney fight, man, inside the distance for sure is the way to go if you're going to play McKinney. That guy's not going to the cards and winning. I'll say that. But that's another one. I actually was joking about it, but it was half serious, that I think short notice fights are probably ideal for him, because he doesn't game plan effectively. He comes in and empties the tank going for the finish right away. So breeding can be durable, though, and that's the one thing that makes me a little worried about it. The Levy fight, he was taking a pretty good beating and kind of comes on late in fights. So if McKinney can't get him out of there, I would be sweating. But he always does have that explosive finishing ability, good subs, good wrestling, good striking. He can do it all, but just not for very long. So we'll see what happens. But they could look really great, or they could be pretty disappointing one way or another.
Yeah, definitely. With that one, I think that was the riskier of the three. Like you said, to the comeback fights, when fighters are on a down skid, betting on them is a little bit tougher. But this one was one, you gotta try to get some extra win there. Closing thoughts, guys, before we close out this card. Joe, I'll let you give your closing thoughts. You're our guest. Finish this out.
Yeah. No, I just think this is going to be an exciting one. I appreciate having the chance to be on here. And if anyone ever wants to practice their MMA betting, we'd love to have you on MMA Bet Club. There's no actual money going through it, but you have the chance to kind of put in what your predictions would be on money lines and a single parlay to see. And good luck to everyone that's betting this weekend. And thanks again for having me.
So what's the plug for the MMA Bet Club?
www.mmabetclub.com. It's basically fantasy MMA, where scoring is the betting outcomes. So who would do the best without actually having to put money at line. I used it before the site, I basically did this to make sure that I knew that I could do well. And if not, there's a leaderboard full of people that are doing well that you could follow, including my man Ryan here, who tends to do pretty well with these parlays.
I was just going to say I didn't do it last week, and I went 4 for 4, and I was, of course, there you have it. But yeah, guys, definitely check out the club. I have so much fun in there. Just people like us getting in there. Talking smack with your friends. You can join your own group. You don't have to hang out with us if you don't think we're cool. Start your own group and talk smack with your friends, just like any other fantasy board. Actually, I will not be able to watch the fights next week. The card that I am matchmaking for, as well as competing on, is going on in South Florida. So I will be stepping in the cage for a grappling bout. It's called a super fight. I tend not to call them that because I've been in a real fight. But I'm really looking forward to it, as well. It's going to be a great event for the up-and-coming amateurs in Florida. So I will be getting texts from everybody on how the UFC is going.
And correct me if I'm wrong, are you looking for some short notice guys
Thank you.
for that one too?
We are, yes. Go to my thank you. Go to my Instagram at Mighty Quinn MMA, at Mighty Quinn MMA, and you'll see what we're looking for. But if anyone's interested and you're in South Florida, I might be able to hook you up with something else anyway.
Awesome. Appreciate you, my man. Appreciate the plug. David Von Aken saying
Quinn
Quinn
versus
versus
Paul.
Paul
Yes, I tried that already. He doesn't want none.
doesn't want none. Guess we'll have to save that for another day. You'll have to bait it out of him. Guys, we appreciate you for listening or watching if you're watching live. Like you said, make sure you guys are following us on the podcast feed, liking us on Facebook, following us on Twitter and Instagram. Make sure you follow both of our guys, Joe and our man, Mr. Ryan Quinn. We appreciate you guys for following Fight Bananas here at Betting Bananas, and we'll catch you guys next week before the fight.